Hey, church. I'm grateful for this chance to be able to share a word with you today. I'm in a weird place in my life, and I don't quite know how to feel. You see, today, my middle child, my oldest daughter, turns 15. She is smart, sweet, thoughtful, generous, and she's full of gumption. She loves animals and children, and one day she wants to be in the medical field, and I'm glad today because of her. But at the same time, I'm also extremely sad. Yesterday, I got the news that one of my very best friends and one of the best men I've ever known is nearing the end of his life. He's been a ministry partner to me. He's been a great blessing to me. We've been friends for 20 plus years now, and I could not be more sad because of him. And today, I'm trying to navigate my emotions between those two extremes. I'm glad because of my daughter, but I'm sad because of my friend. And I'm a mess of conflicting emotions because of those two things. I've been asking the Lord to speak to me all day and to help me. And I believe that He gave me a word that I want to share with you. It's Romans 12:12, which reads, "Rejoice in hope, be patient in affliction, be persistent in prayer." As I think about these two extremes of my emotions, both sadness and gladness, it occurs to me that most of our days are spent somewhere between those two things. Some days there's more sadness than gladness. Other days there's more gladness than sadness. But almost always life is a mixture of those two things. Things are rarely as good as we want them to be or as bad as they could be. And as a believer, we must learn to walk most days between those two extremes. We must learn how to navigate life with all of its ups and downs through the good times and the bad and discover what is the best way to approach life like that. And so I think Romans 12:12 can help us with that. As you may know, Romans was written to the believers at Rome in the first century. So this was the early church. And Paul was sharing with them the power of the gospel through the person and the work of Jesus Christ to save every person that will believe. It is a deeply theological letter, which is to say that it teaches us all about God and it teaches us how to think about God. And the book breaks up quite easily into two parts. The first 11 chapters are very doctrinal, and then chapters 12 through 16 are very practical. And so in this chapter, in chapter 12, Paul is beginning to tell the church how to live in clear view of God's mercies, to present your bodies a living sacrifice to God, to renew your mind, to use your spiritual gifts, to exercise love towards one another. And so this verse 12, falls into the section that is sometimes labeled, depending on the translation you have. If you've got the New King James Version, it might say, behave like a Christian. In the NIV, it says love in action. In the ESV, it says marks of a true Christian. And today I'm using the Christian Standard Bible. And so what the editors have done, they have labeled this section Christian ethics. And so because I'm using the Christian Standard Bible, the word ethics sticks out to me. So let me give you a simple definition for ethics. They are moral principles that govern a person's behavior. And so this speaks to me, especially today, as someone who is in need of direction for dealing with conflicting emotions. I need biblical principles for how to navigate that. And so today, it's gladness and sadness. Tomorrow, it could be love and hate. The next day, it could be anger or apathy, or we could experience any other combination of conflicting emotions and feelings. And so the question is, how do we deal with these things in a biblically, spiritually, and emotionally positive way? And so according to Romans 12:12, there are three ways that we deal with these things. Rejoice in hope, be patient in affliction, and be persistent in prayer. So let's talk about the first one here. When we are dealing with conflicting emotions, what we need most is hope. Now, what is hope? In general, hope is a feeling of expectation and a desire for a certain thing to happen. It is to want something to happen or for something to be the case. Someone might say, maybe you've even said this yourself, I want to win the lottery. But that doesn't mean that you will. It is a maybe so, but it's very uncertain. Biblical hope is different from any other kind of hope that we experience. Biblical hope is the confident expectation that what God has promised is going to come to pass. So, for example, in the case of my daughter, my wife and I, we hope that she grows up to be a good and godly woman, that she will be healthy, that she will be happy, that she will be holy, that she will marry a good man, raise a family, have a career, but we don't know that any of that is going to happen. What I can hope for in a biblical way is that if I raise her in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, then she will place her trust in Him and live according to His ways. I can hope in God that what He wants to happen for her will come to pass. And so what hope does, biblical hope, bridges the gap between what is and what will be. And so when we are dealing with conflicting emotions, we need to be able to put hope in God and to rejoice in Him no matter the circumstances. Now, the second thing it tells us is that when we are dealing with constant affliction, what we need most is patience. So the word patient here means to endure. And some translations even use the word tribulation rather than affliction. Paul may have persecution in mind for this text, but the word can refer to any kind of hardship. And so today it reminds me of my friend. I remember the day that he came to my office almost 20 years ago now to tell me that he had cancer. And since then, he's been through transplant, treatments, and a lot of trouble through the years. Through all the pain that he has endured, he has been a model sufferer. I never once heard him complain, be upset with God, but he always gave Him glory. And he has patiently waited for God's healing in God's way at God's timing. And it appears that we may be there now, but not in the way that we wanted. This is the place where hope and patience come together. Of course, we wanted him to experience bodily healing here, and we have waited patiently for it. This is where hope comes in. That it hasn't happened here and that it hasn't happened now does not diminish the confident expectation we have that it will happen. If not now, then. And if not here, it will happen there. And so Romans 8:18 through 25 are about the collision of affliction and hope. So here's what Paul writes there. In Romans 8:18, he says that I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is going to be revealed to us. For the creation eagerly awaits with expectation for God's sons to be revealed. And so I'm going to skip down to verse 23 where he says, and not only that, not only does creation groan, but we ourselves who have the Spirit as the first fruits, we also groan within ourselves, eagerly awaiting for adoption, the redemption of our bodies. Now in this hope we were saved, but hope that is seen is not hope, because who hopes for what he sees? Now, if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with patience. In the case of my friend, we hope for healing. We have not yet seen it, but we patiently wait for it to occur. And when we experience consistent and constant affliction, what we need is patience to deal with it. Now, in the third thing here, when we don't know how to feel, and that's what I'm navigating today, and when we don't know how to deal with a specific situation, what do? Well, we need to pray and not give up. If hope is for an expectation that may be a long way off, and if endurance is needed for an affliction that lasts for a long period of time, then what do we need? We need a response that is up to the task of both those things. And I think that's why Paul says here that we should be persistent in prayer. I love the quote that says, prayer is to the soul what breath is to the body. The body cannot live without breath, and the soul cannot thrive without prayer. When we run into an emotion or a condition that we cannot live with, we need to know that we cannot live without prayer. And so here's Philippians 4:6-7 that says, don't worry about anything, but in everything, through prayer and with petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Do you see how persistence in prayer is what makes it possible for us to have hope in uncertain times and patience in unpleasant conditions? And all three of these things work together. Hope and patience and prayer. They work together to help us deal with things in a biblically, spiritually, and emotionally positive way. It wasn't my intention today, and I really prayed about this a lot. It was not my intention to co-opt my daughter's birthday or my friend's sickness for my own means, and I really hope that's not what I've done. Just dealing with those two things, that's where I'm at today. I have conflicted emotions and concern for my friend and his family. I have gladness for my daughter. And I don't know how to feel about those two things working together. And I'm not sure how to deal with both of those things. And Romans 12:12 spoke to me today. And I just want to say to you that if you are ever in the same place in which you don't know how to feel and you don't know how to deal, then I encourage you to rejoice in hope, be patient in affliction, and be persistent in prayer. Thanks and God bless. I pray that God adds the blessing to his word today.